Winter Roses, Summer by fairytalelovr. Chapter 39. Word Travels. Adam was shocked into silence. He must have heard wrong. But then everyone turned to him with smiles, and he thought he might have heard right after all. The heart tree began to cry, signaling that the gods were giving their blessings, and the ceremony ended, simple as the northerner's light, and they started to return to the castle.
"Why?"
Adam asked, falling into step with Jon and Daenerys. "You saved both our lives, Adam," she answered.
"You still got injured."
She scoffed. "Yes, well, he blindsided you for a moment. But a lesser man would have fallen in pain. You kept your feet. More than that, you used your other hand, with a dagger buried in your arm, and stopped him from killing me."
"We could offer you riches and a castle," Jon said, "but we knew you would take it as an offence, and say I was only doing my job. So Dany suggested this, and I agreed. This is our way of honouring you, and saying how much we appreciate your loyalty."
Adam felt his eyes fill with tears. "We would have liked to use another name," Dany said softly, "but
"Too dangerous. Not worth it,"
he said.
"It would have been worth it," Jon insisted, "but we thought we wanted people to know now."
Adam smiled, touched.
"Oh, your mother would have been so proud of you, Dragon Wolf. And the Queen. Oh, Queen Rhaella would have been so proud of her daughter. My dear father, Daenerys as well. Her recovery was miraculous, so we've been thanking the old gods. The volcano didn't erupt again, and now the cloud of ash is finally dissipating. Northern winds are taking it southeast to Braavos. Mr. Wilkins says that in a few days we'll be able to send and receive ravens, but so far we're unreachable, which may be why I haven't had any messages from Robb. Although I would be happier with waiting, Daenerys refuses to stay in bed, only conceding, as begrudgingly as Adam did, to put a sling or to allow her shoulder to heal. So we had the naming ceremony last night. I proudly announced that your first grandson is named Lord Adam Starling, after the man that saved him and his mother, regardless of having a dagger buried in his arm. Lyanna is very unhappy, even jealous, that she isn't the sole centre of attention anymore. But we've been encouraging her to spend time with her baby brother, so she'll come around. Lord Tyrion has spoken to me, in confidence, about his motives and what made him depart Casterly Rock and betray his family's secrets. And I ask you to trust me that they are good and honest. I trust Lord Tyrion, and have extended him my hospitality. But your idea to spread the rumours is a good one. It might stay Lord Tywin's hand. All our love, Sir Jon of House Starling, Lord of the Midnight Fortress and the Blessed Island.
Robb was discussing household guard with Hallis Mollen when Maester Lewin brought a new raven scroll.
"From your father, my lord?" Robb took it with concern. "What about Jon? Has there been any reply?"
"Not yet, my lord. But if Lord Wendell's message about the volcano expelling ash holds truth, then no raven can fly in and out of the island. We'll hear no news until the cloud dissipates." Robb sighed and unrolled the scroll from his father.
"Dear Robb, I am rejoicing that you and Bran are well, and that the threat was eliminated. But please do increase security. A group of assassins also attacked the Midnight Fortress. Jon and Lyanna were not injured, while one of the assassins managed to wound Daenerys. And they managed to deliver the baby, your nephew, and the Maester said it was all left to Daenerys' strength. You know her even better than I, son. We have no cause to think she won't make a full recovery if that is the case. The volcano erupted, and that's why they are incommunicable. But I am sure your brother will send a raven as soon as he can. Don't do anything rash, Robb. Increase security, and use force to protect yourselves, but let me handle the rest. And that's an order. All our love, Lord Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell, Lord Paramount of the North, Warden of the North, and Hand of the King." Ella was sitting in her salon, thinking and waiting. She knew Ned would disagree with her idea,
but her husband was too honourable and lacked the necessary amount of political ingenuity to play the ridiculous games of King's Landing. She would prefer to be in Winterfell with him and the children, away from the mess. But as that wasn't the case, she'd make damn sure they were safe. The service door she left unbarred inched open, and she turned around in her chair.
"Lady Stark," the man said in his usual sumptuous manner, "a little bird said you wished to talk."
"I do. Please take a seat, Lord Varys."
"I am assuming this has to do with reports that Robb Stark has been attacked in his bedchamber in Winterfell."
"That too. What else have you heard?"
"Birds from the Vale and White Harbour sing songs of an erupted volcano, but I have no information about the island itself, most likely due to the cloud of ash."
"Well, I happen to have some information in that regard."
Varys raised an eyebrow. "If you have come to me, my lady, it's because you can't do it yourself, and you know your husband wouldn't agree."
"That is for me to concern myself with, Spider. Cersei sent assassins for the Lady Daenerys."
"Can you prove it?"
Ella scoffed. "If we could, Lord Stark would have gone to the Fat Fool already."
"What is it you want, Lady Stark?"
"I want you to suggest to Robert to spend more time with Joffrey. A real bond between father and son. King and heir apparent."
Varys narrowed his eyes. "To what end? You have no interest in the Baratheon dynasty maintaining their power."
"Robert will either disinherit him sooner, and with no manoeuvre from us, or he'll alienate Joffrey from the Lannisters at least a little bit."
"Joffrey will never have the support of the people," Varys stated. "And it is doubtful he'll ever love Mummy any less."
"No, he'll never be loved by anyone other than Cersei," Ella agreed. "Joffrey will likely only make them hate him more. And that doesn't work in our favour?"
The Master of Whisperers smiled. "I had expected Ned Stark's coming to King's Landing would be a great disappointment. You've changed that completely, my lady."
"You know you don't have to butter me up, Lord Varys. I will only ever trust you as far as I can throw you."
He laughed. "That's the extent to which trust works in the capital, my lady. But you know the game, and for so long as we have the same goal, I do think we'll make great friends."
Ella glared at him. "We do, Lord Varys. But remember, I know you. I know how far you're willing to go for the greater good."
"Is this still about Harrenhal?"
"You knew what was going to happen in Harrenhal, and you still whispered into Aerys's ear. It was only ever because you knew of that rebellion had even cause to happen."
Yes, and that was a big miscalculation on my part. I do admit to it. I didn't account for the situation between Prince Rhaegar and Princess Alia. I couldn't foresee Lyanna Stark joining the game, and I certainly couldn't tell what came afterwards."
"No one could have foreseen that. But Rhaegar—"
"The Dragon Prince would have most likely been betrayed in Harrenhal. I knew of a man who said that if the prince had any ideas during the tourney, he would tell the Mad King only for favours. And I am sure there were others. That is why I told Aerys. If Lyanna Stark hadn't impressed him so, my plan would have worked. He would have returned to the capital with few, but enough supporters, and the plan would have proceeded as imagined."
"Well, your miscalculation nearly killed the entire royal family and buried the realm in a bloody war. And it put a philandering fool on the throne, puppeted by an evil bitch. I dare say you have a lot of amends to make, Lord Varys."
"My dear brother, I'm sorry it took us this long to send another message, but the volcano erupted. As Uncle Benjen told you, Leah and I are fine, and between Maester Walkin and the midwife, my son, Lord Adam, and Daenerys are also fine. Dany is having a very quick recovery, to which we are all thankful for. Father says you've been attacked as well. Is everything well? I am concerned, brother. These attacks are not random, we've been assured. In other news, Lord Tyrion Lannister is our guest for the foreseeable future. I look forward to having you visit to meet your nephew. Love, Sir John of House Starling, Lord of the Midnight Fortress and the Blessed Island."
Ned had purposefully put it off for a few days, especially because he needed to get a raven from the Midnight Fortress, or the Grand Maester would be suspicious, and they didn't need anyone wondering how messages were being sent and received. His request to Jon to keep the fact that Lyanna was the heiress quiet for a while longer was not to raise Robert's ire that Daenerys would continue her line. But now a son had been born, and the gods only knew what would be the king's reaction.
"Ned!" Robert greeted him in his usual flamboyant manner. Then he frowned. "You look like you have received terrible news, my friend."
But Ned was glaring at the Kingsguard nearby.
"Sir Jaime, fancy seeing you here. Tell me, when was the last time you've heard from your Lord Father?"
The knight raised an eyebrow.
"That's a queer question, Lord Stark. Does it have a reason, or is it simply curiosity?" "A little bit of both. I received a raven from Lord Starling, and amidst other news he mentioned that Lord Tyrion is his guest. There was no space for anything else, really, but I did wonder why the Lannisters are spreading throughout the kingdoms."
Jaime clenched his jaw. He knew an accusation when he heard one.
"I have no idea, Lord Stark, but my brother does like to follow his impulses and flights of fancy, so I wouldn't worry about an impromptu visit." "I see. A curious fight of fancy, this one." "Go see if the door needs company, Lannister," Robert said seriously. "The Lord Hand and I have business to discuss."
Jaime nodded, bowed his head, and left the room as Ned took the chair across the desk from his king.
"Tell me." "In the recent days were a flurry of dark winds, your grace. I could discount the first as an isolated attempt, but the second—" "Attempt at what, Ned?"
The Northerner took a deep breath.
"Rob wrote first, nearly a fortnight ago, to tell me there had been an attempt on his life. The assassin was killed before he could be questioned, so I ordered him to increase the guard, and had been prepared to think of it as an attempt to the heir of a great house. Then I got a raven last night from Jon. It seems that not a few days later, the Midnight Fortress was attacked and Lady Starling was the target. She suffered a light wound," Ned lied, "and they were able to safely deliver the child. But still, first an assassin comes into my home to attempt to murder my eldest son, my heir's life, and then another group attacks my second son's home and makes an attempt on my pregnant good daughter. It was a miracle no one was killed, but you must agree with me that it cannot be random."
Robert pursed his lips.
"And what is the imp doing on the island?"
he asked.
"No idea. Jon only said he was a welcome guest, that he came with no redcoats, and that he arrived after the attack. I doubt he was involved, but it does beg the question of what in the seven hells he is doing there." "It does indeed," Robert said in a grave voice. "It is too serious an accusation to make lightly, Ned." "I'm not accusing anyone, Robert. I meant what I said that day in the small council. Tywin Lannister is too cunning for this. These attacks were too public, too obvious, and right after he and I were openly at odds. But I thought you should know, Robert, as my friend and my king. Because whoever ordered this, it threatened the sanctuary of mine and my son's homes, and the lives of my sons, good daughter, and grandson. I will search for the culprit, and I will have justice."
But Robert focused on the information Ned had been trying to slip by.
"Grandson?" "Aye, Jon has a son now. Lord Adam Starling, I'm told, since it seems my good brother did the saving." "Oh, it's... Jon deserves it, of course. Fine young man he is."
He then cleared his throat.
"You have the king's support, Lord Stark,"
Robert said in his kingly voice.
"If the bastard is found, I'll have his head on a spike in a blink."
Ned nodded, relieved, though anger and worry were still pumping through his blood. Cersei walked back into her chambers after a walk to see if she could clear her head from the unwelcome disaster her father had recently dropped on her.
"Our minds are running dry."
She stopped short of her desk, seeing something had been delivered in her absence. Her hand trembled as she reached for the flower. It had not been brought by a raven. Some man or woman had personally delivered the message and the flower, and as such declared to have access to the rock. She unfolded the small piece of parchment. "We persevere." She gasped, and her hand sparked in pain as she clenched her fists, opening them in reflex. The winter rose fell on the desk, red staining the single thorn not removed. Cersei breathed hard, seeing a few drops of her scarlet blood stain the petals blue as frost, and the haunting message. Queen you will be, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you out and steal all that you hold dear. The witch's words echoed in her mind. She screamed in pure frustration.
Dear brother, I find it interesting that Lord Tyrion is your guest. I'm sure he'll have all manner of tales to tell. I'm very happy to hear that you, Leah and Danny are fine, and also that I have a nephew. I shall arrange a visit as soon as possible. For the moment, though, I am concerned with tales brought to me by Yoren, a man of the Night's Watch, and by the increasing numbers of deserters and wildlings. Only last week a band attacked us in the Wolfswood, and the surviving woman, who is our prisoner, tells odd stories. I fear I might have to go to investigate, as is my duty as acting Lord of Winterfell. Love, Lord Robb of House Stark.
My dear son, it is with ecstatic joy that I write to inform you of the birth of your youngest brother, Lord Cregan of House Stark, with the construction of the place. It is also my pleasure to announce my decision to make him Lord of Moat Cailin. All our love, Lord Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell, Lord of Paramount of the North, Warden of the North, and Hand of the King.
Ella rolled her eyes at Ned's sour face as he helped her out of the litter. Love, you could look a little less murderous. It's our son's naming ceremony, she said, reaching for the baby so Lady Winifred could climb out of the litter as well.
Ned snorted. This is ridiculous. All this haste is stupid.
Ned, please, she said with a sigh. This was decided by the king.
Because he was feeling like going hunting.
I have the urge to kill things, he said.
I don't get it. He was the one who decided to spend time with Joffrey, and now he's complaining about it? And in order to satisfy his urges, he just wants to leave and have fun and commands the ceremony be had earlier than custom. You should have another week in bed before even starting to worry about this. Ella bit her lip to hide her amusement. Driving Robert to resent Joffrey had been her goal all along.
Ned, this is what Robert does. Don't you remember how he controlled everything in our wedding? And stop fussing. I'm perfectly fine. I know. She sighed. I know how it feels to not be fine after childbirth. Trust me. All is well. Ned pursed his lips, but said nothing else. It was exactly because of the daughter they had lost before he'd even met her that he was so worried. People were starting to come near then, and it was time to enter the sept. They had had the northern ceremony the evening before, and, as it was usual, the few southerners who attended had been flabbergasted with the simplicity. He supposed it was quite straightforward compared to this song and dance, the flair of the faith of the Seven. Sighing, he led the way into the sanctuary. Catelyn watched from the shadows as the crowd gathered. She had been confined to chambers on the day of Ned's wedding to the whore, as the High Septon and Septerinella had been concerned she would do something to create a scene. But she had heard all about it. The other Septors had been whispering and awed with the grandeur and Lady Stark's beauty. Catelyn had cried and cried for days, feeling replaced and thrown aside. Then Septerinella had come, weeks later, to tell her about the morning's announcement. Lady Stark was carrying a child. That was when Catelyn had broken down into sobs. She had prayed and prayed that Rickon wouldn't be the youngest of Ned's children, back in another lifetime, when she still lived in Winterfell. And now this prayer was being answered, but she wasn't the one giving him this gift. She had cried and cried for another few days, and then thought back to all the prayers Ned had hated her for. Perhaps she had been wrong to ask the mother to deny another woman a child. The mother was the goddess you prayed to when you wanted fortune to grace you and your family, like she had prayed for Bran. She had prayed to the wrong god, and now it had turned against her. She watched now as the new Lady Stark carried the little bundle of blankets across the sanctuary, to the basin placed between the mother and the father. Then the High Septon began the ceremony and announced the child's name for all to hear. Lord Cragen Stark. A boy. And though Catelyn was too far away to see the child's eyes, when they passed by the basin beneath the warrior to bless the child, she saw a head full of dark brown hair. With the mother's hair also being darker, it would be hard for it to be different, but still. The bastard looked like a true Stark of the Winterfell, and this one seemed to go in the same direction. Soon enough people would start commenting that, regardless of her noble blood and great house, Lady Catelyn hadn't been able to give her husband children of his colouring, not like the common Lady Ella had. Though the ceremony hadn't yet finished, Catelyn ran back to her room, barely barring the door behind her before she dissolved into sobs. There were too many conflicting feelings inside her right now for her to make sense of them, so she only cried, trying to exercise her sadness.
My dear big brother, I find myself quite unable to find the right words to share my joy. I have a son, Ned! A beautiful baby boy, already with a head full of dark brown hair and dark eyes, though we can't tell the colour yet. My heart feels like it's grown 100 times since I first held him in my arms, big brother. I am humbled with my wife's suggestion to name him Lord Rickard, and you may call me a fool if you wish, but I love her all the more for it. Love Lord Benjen of House Stark, Lord of Crystalia.
My beloved Rob, rumours have reached my ears that you have been attacked in your bedchamber a few moons ago. I am certain it was a desire to not worry me that kept you from writing to me before now. I shall be very cross if there is another reason. Dany's blasé mention leads me to believe that everyone thought it reasonable that you'd have the care to tell your betrothed, and also that you are well and your guard prevailed over a degenerate assassin. I beseech you to not withhold these things from me any more, as the gossip will certainly reach me at one point, and I will be very worried. I look forward to hearing from you. It has been too long since our last letter. Love, Lady Marjorie of House Tyrell. Daenerys huffed in annoyance as she watched Jon, Patrick and Gren moving about the room and picking things to pack.
You know I have to go, Dany. I'd much rather stay here with you and the children.
She sighed. Why can't you just wait a little while longer? Then little Adam won't be so little and I can go with you.
I don't think that's the best idea, Jon said. Castle Black hasn't seen many women, if any, and there are quite a few rapists over there. I wouldn't like you there, even if you've become quite good with your dagger.
Dany shrugged. I think I can defend myself.
He rolled his eyes. Dany, a dagger may help, but the first thing a man would do is hold you down. Honestly, it's not worth the risk. So just keep practicing with Adam, and maybe you'll be able to surprise me when I come back.
She sat up straighter. What do you mean, keep practicing with Adam? Jon frowned.
Do you intend to stop now? I thought you enjoyed your lessons.
Of course I intend to stop, Dany said, because Adam is going with you.
Jon stared at her in shock. Of course he isn't. He's staying here with you and the children. I can defend myself, Dany.
Yes, and after the attack Rhaelos has quite the army protecting the castle. The children and I will be perfectly safe. Unlike you, who is going to an extremely hostile place to meet with hostile people. Adam is going with you, and before you have any ideas, so is Ghost.
Dany, he whined,
Nymeria, Lady and the guards are enough, Jon. I will not live in fear for the rest of my life. This is our castle, our home, and I will not let that woman cower me into being a scared little lizard. I'm a dragon.
I don't doubt how strong you are, Dany.
Good, then it's settled. Patrick, see to it Sir Adam's clothes are packed, and Gren, do check for his weaponry and saddle.
Gren smiled and bowed. Of course, ladies darling. Dany, I still think...
Jon tried again, but she merely turned to him with a raised brow.
I just feel better if Adam stayed with you.
Well, I'd feel better if he went with you, she asserted, and this time I'm completely disregarding your feelings in favour of my comfort. John only huffed in annoyance. He knew there was no changing her mind.
Dear Danny, we've docked at each watch by the sea this afternoon, and are gathering horses and supplies for the journey along the wall. Neither Winterstorm nor Ghost were particularly pleased, and Sam only found it bearably acceptable. We'll be in Castle Black in 4 days, so most likely by the time you receive this raven, I will still be anxiously awaiting your response. I miss you and the children very, very, very much. All my love, Sir John of House Starling, Lord of the Midnight Fortress and the Blessed Island. Dear Marjorie, I apologise for the oversight. It was a desire not to worry you when the threat had already been taken care of, but I promise it won't happen again. Greywind claimed the rescue that night, but we've discovered how the assassin got through the guards and took steps to ensure that it won't happen again. I hadn't considered that the gossip might travel all the way south, though I should have, and that you would be worried. Would you forgive me? I hope you will. We're leaving soon, so by the time you receive this letter, we shall be arriving in Castle Black. There has been some unusual activity from the wildlings, and concerning reports from the rangers, so, as acting Lord of Winterfell, it falls to me to investigate. John will sail north to Eastwatch by the sea, and he'll see how things are there, and in the way west along the wall. But really, it is nothing you should concern yourself with. I am sure the Night's Watch is making a fuss in order to draw attention to the fact that most, nearly all, of the nobility has been ignoring the payment of taxes and levies, as well as the number of men that are supposed to send over. I have written to my father, and I'm sure he and the king will enforce the law, and this business will be dealt with. I shall send a raven once we leave Castle Black, so you won't worry, and once I'm in Winterfell, I will write a detailed account of my journey, and hope to delight you with my tales. Love, Lord Robb of House Starling.
My beloved husband, I'm glad you arrived safely, and thoroughly entertained that Ghost and Winterstorm didn't find their sea legs. Everything is fine, and the castle is as safe as always, though the children are bored and miss you terribly. Leah won't stop asking for Papa, and even stomping into your solar to look for you. And little Adam keeps hugging the cloth white wolf you gave him and pulling it close. I miss you too, my love, and I can't wait for your swift and safe return. Love and kisses, Lady Daenerys of House Starling, Lady of the Midnight Fortress and the Blessed Island.
If we had had this scheduled, John called, it wouldn't have worked.
The group of men laughed. John, Sam, Adam, Patrick, Gren, and 5 other guards had travelled along the wall from Eastwatch by the sea, while Robb and Theon had travelled northwards by the King's Road, with 10 guards from Winterfell to Castle Black. And they had just met outside the gate. The Black brothers opened for them, and they all entered the small courtyard of the castle that served as headquarters for the Night's Watch. A castle in ruins, or as near it as being as uninhabited to allow for.
When Rhaegar said this was falling apart, I didn't really believe him.
Adam muttered under his breath.
He worried about the Night's Watch?
John asked curiously, though also quietly.
Yes,
Adam replied.
He exchanged letters with the Maester about something or other. That's how we knew. He intended... He exhaled deeply. He intended a lot of things, and he didn't have time for most of them.
He snapped, turning back to his horse. John frowned, but Robb had dismounted as well, and he turned to greet his brother. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that one. A lot of letters. Marjorie reminding Robb, hello, we're still engaged. You need to call me. It's basically texting someone to call you back. Girl's not giving her boyfriend much room. And also, tension has a kid. And also, like, oh, I'm really happy for Ella and Ned having little Cragen. Also, perfect timing, what with the 2nd season of House of the Dragon coming out soon. Good timing. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.